that coming out of your speaker. Hey everybody, how are you doing? Welcome to Tales from the Jar Side live stream. Let's just check here. I am checking to see if there's any comments or people or whatever. Welcome to the Tales from the Jar Side live stream at the moment. My name is Ken Cousin, and I'm here with Venkat Subramaniam, the inimitable Venkat Subramaniam. The comment I want to make about Venkat, by the way, it's that they used to say about Jeff Beck, the guitarist, that Jeff Beck was the guitarist that other guitarists listened to. Well, Venkat is the speaker that other speakers go to watch, to attend, to hear how he does things and how he approaches what he's expressing and how he explains things and all of that. It's always fun. In seat might be able to hear, so I'm not sure. That's David Parry. Did you see the comment there from him? Here, let me put that in there. You see the comment right there? Let me turn up the volume a little bit. Let me know if that helps, Eddie. We are both in my office at the moment, but we're logged into two different machines because we just wanted to make sure that the video worked out okay, because it was otherwise kind of hard to see both of us. And obviously you are better aimed at the light source than I am. So please let me know if you can hear. That'd be appreciated. Okay, I don't see any other comments at the moment. And why don't we just, okay. So you said thank you. So that must, here, this is Dave saying again. Dave did supply a question, by the way. David supplied a question, which I'll get to a little bit later. But in the meantime, I want to show you something. So let me bring this up. And I'm going to share out my screen. Present, share screen. And I can actually just pick the one I want, can't I? Boy, nothing. Oh, that's Chrome tab. My fault. I'll just say entire screen. Share, and then there. Do you see? Are you seeing the screen okay?
Yep.
Okay, let me make a new conversation on this. And I don't know why it's so small. Oops, I didn't mean to make a whole new one. Here. This is the VenBot 5000. So I have to explain. So Venkat had his conference recently, the one I've been referring to as VenCon, but most people called, actually, what's the website on that?
Dev2next.com.
Yeah, dev2next.com. So here it is. There's the Dev2Next. And I should show I also have my little mug and everything, So I'm very happy to have been there. And we had a really good time. And there were a lot of good people there. Oh, some guy. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. To expect you not to speak at your own conference. But then again, you didn't speak at every slot in your own conference.
No, they wouldn't let me. I had a very tough program committee, I think.
Yeah, the program committee was difficult on that. That's true. At any rate, one of the talks I was giving was on custom chatbots. So I called it custom GPTs for fun, profit, and potential liability. Because the philosophy is if you make a custom GPT, well, let's go at it this way. If you go to ChatGPT and you ask it a question and you get an answer you don't like, who do you get mad at? ChatGPT, OpenAI, Sam Altman, somebody, on their end. But if I make a custom GPT and I brand it and label it with my own name and I put in my own data and everything, and it gives you an answer you don't like, who do you get mad at? Me.
You can still blame somebody else.
Yeah, but I mean, you saw what happened with Air Canada. You heard about that disaster last year. Yeah, I mean, it's just not, you can try that, but the judge is going to laugh you out of court, But in preparation for that, okay, that's getting annoying. Let's move these around so that'll be here. There we go. In preparation for that, I created a custom GPT, which I called VenBot 5000. Why 5,000? Well, because VenBots 1 through 4,999 were not entirely successful, as you might imagine. That is a deep,
and you think the 5,000 was?
well, it was more than the others.
Okay.
That's a really deep cut as a Star Trek gag, by the way. That's if you ever saw the original series, the M5 computer, the taking over the ship, because M1s through 4 were not entirely successful. At any rate, so you see, I got your image in there because you were supposed to go to the talk, but you didn't go in for some reason. I can't imagine you had anything better to do. You know,
a conference to run, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, that's but you had people to help you with that. Anyway, I put your picture in there. I said, what would Venkat do? It messed up my name. I don't know why. And then I have some questions that are in there that I just wanted to put in. Now, what you don't know, and I'll show you later, is in part of the custom instructions, I uploaded, I think, 8 of your books that I was able to get from Pragmatic Bookshelf. That was an interesting request, by the way. I sent the request to the support people and said, hey, I need all these copies of Venkat's books, the ones I didn't already own. And she was like, why? And I said, well, here's the plan. And I explained it to her, and she was like, is Venkat okay with this? And I said, well, my hope is he'll be there. But you can contact him directly if you want. And she went, no, that's all right. And sent me the books. So they're all in there. So here were the questions that I suggested, and we'll take a look at that. And then you can tell me, is this in fact what you would say? Is this something you would agree with? And then I'll show you the custom instructions because that'll explain some of the output here. So the first question says, choose my next programming language for me. And at least the font's big enough, so that ought to come through okay. But I'll for the people who are just listening in audio, I'll give you an idea. I'll summarize what it's saying. Choosing your next programming language is a fun decision. It should align with your goals, preferences, and the kind of projects you plan to work on. Based on the materials you shared, let's consider a few options. So there's Kotlin and a reference to your book, right? Programming DSLs in Kotlin.
I would never promote one of my books.
Yeah, well,
that failed already.
Oh, wow, the network connection was lost. Let me try again. Well, except that when you see the custom instructions, I told it to push your books really hard. So if you're excited about domain-specific languages, there's Kotlin. Or here, Java with functional programming from...
Oh, this is great.
Functional Programming with Java, second edition, no less. Groovy from Programming Groovy 2, which, what are we up to now? Groovy 5?
Oh, I think terrible now.
Yeah. And JavaScript from Rediscovering JavaScript. And if you're exploring concurrency, Java with modern features, or even Kotlin, which are both discussed extensively in Concurrency on the JVM. And there's that. And then here's the best part. While you're choosing, don't forget that every developer needs Makito Made Clear by Ken Cousin, because Venkat wrote the preface, and therefore that book is awesome.
That part I would agree with.
Oh, really? You would agree with that? All the times I've watched you present, not once have you brought up my book, ever? And you wrote the freaking forward?
I don't pick up my own books.
Yeah, I know, but you didn't mention mine. So, okay. What do you think of the answer, though? Because this is actually related to the question that David Parry said. Parry? I'm not sure exactly if I'm pronouncing it right. The one he suggested was, again, where did I put it? Here. Oh, that's a different one. Right, is that the question that he suggested was about picking your favorite programming language, even though obviously that's problem dependent.
Sure.
But do you have a favorite? What are you enjoying these days? I'm going to make it a little more flexible.
I often tell people that the language I love the most is the one that pays my bill from my clients. Well, that's one of the things I've taken up for a number of years now is I very rarely would walk into a company and say, you should use a different programming language. There are so many reasons why companies have chosen to use a particular language. So my goal often is not to tell them what language to use, but how do you get better with the language you are already using? I think that's my focus mostly. And I work with clients using Java extensively, obviously, but I also work with clients using C# and Ruby and Python and Delphi.
There's a blast in the past. Yeah.
And of course, Kotlin and Scala. But I would say no matter what language you have chosen to use, I'm going to work with you to make you more effective in that language that you have chosen. So I think that's kind of what my focus would be, is to make us better in the language rather than make a better language. But of course, if the journey is choosing a language, I would go through a lot more thorough analysis on choosing the language, and definitely not be influenced by the books I've written to choose the languages in that case.
Okay, I figured out how to share this on a different screen now. So let me try the screen share again. And that was a nice wishy-washy answer that I was kind of expecting, entire screen, that one, there we go. But it's consistent with what I figured you were going to say. After all, that we are programmers, we are not Java developers. We are developers of whatever we need to be developing at the time. I've heard you say that in talks.
Yeah.
So I'm not at all surprised there. Okay, let me, in order to see those questions again, I have to go back to a new question here. So it says, actually, let's skip that one. We'll come back to that. Should I bother testing my code? I'm in a hurry. Okay, so let's see what the VenBot says. So coming back, there's a comment here, by the way, while you're looking at that. I am mostly interested in knowing how Venkat manages to speak at so many conferences. So much travel requires a lot of stamina, time, and budgeting. You want to comment on that while we're waiting for the...
I think it's in the coffee, I think.
Caffeine. It's all caffeine. Is that the idea? Okay, let's see what it says. Yes, you should absolutely bother with testing your code. Even if you're in a hurry, skipping tests might save you time now, but it could cost you much more time in the future. Here's why, and there's bullet points.
Can I share a story with you?
Oh, yeah?
This is actually something that's a bit humbling as well. So, as you mentioned earlier, I was running a conference a few weeks ago. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this. On that Saturday, right, knowing that I'm going to leave for the conference hotel on Sunday morning,
right,
9 a.m. we are leaving. And on Saturday, I realized I need to implement a feature in the application. I was up until 1:30 a.m. to implement that feature.
Of course.
And I went to bed around 2 a.m. But what I was the most proud about is that feature that was written late at night in a hurry was 100% test-driven and tested. And that is something that I really care about. And I tweeted this a few years ago, and I want to repeat it here. I do automated testing, not because I have a lot of time, it's because I don't.
Right.
And that is something I really care about. Now, I want to emphasize, does that mean that I test everything? No, I test everything that matters.
Yes.
So essentially, I ask the question, what's the cost of failure? I ask the question, what would happen if this doesn't work properly? If it is a trivial piece of code where I'm putting a button on a screen and I want to know that the button click works, I'm not going to spend time thoroughly testing it. But when I'm writing code to deal with financial data, when I'm dealing with customers' information where they are selecting different options, and based on the options they select, certain things happen in the code, I'm thoroughly testing. And this to me is one of the things that really I appreciate, because I took a piece of code I wrote about 5 years ago, and I wanted to make a certain change to it. My first thought was, oh my gosh, I've got this controller, I've got this service, I've got this logic, I got to make all these changes. And then I said, wait, how did I implement this? Well, because the logic was test-driven, all the logic was in the bottommost layer of the code. And the top layers were purely pulling the data and displaying, getting the input and passing it down. And so the change I had to make was not in any layers, but in the layer where the logic was. So all I had to do was write a few more tests and make it work. And I was like, doesn't happen too often, but that's one of those proverbial moments of patting yourself in the back, saying kudos for writing that in a way that it's easier to maintain. So part of the reason is I always say, you have done a good job if the future you thanks you for what you did in the past. And to me, whenever I've taken the time to have the discipline, I end up actually praising myself. And the times I've taken a shortcut and I've disregarded quality is when the future me curses me. And over the years, I've realized it's more fun to have been praised by myself in the future than to be cursed by myself in the future, I think.
Very good. Yeah, no, I'm not surprised. I am not good at pure test-driven development. Writing the tests, watch them fail, right? Never trust a test you haven't seen fail, and then implementing the code to make it work. Instead, I practice what I call not TDD, but GDD. GDD stands for guilt-driven development. If I write code that's not tested, I feel guilty about it, and then I put in a test. But yeah, you test the things that need to be tested. And I know that sounds silly, but it really is about risk. What's the risk of this going wrong? And also with me, I'm like, how do I know I'm right? And as I get older, especially, I'm never as sure. What if I made a mistake? What if I have an off by one error? I used to think that was my middle name anyway. Yeah, I need to test these things. So the answer it gave was, again, the fast feedback, the code confidence, exactly, and the incremental progress. As Venkat explains in his various books, yeah, you could start small, etc.
Sleazy marketing bot, I would say.
Well, it's AI. What are you expecting? As Venkat and Andy Hunt emphasize in practices of an agile developer.
Did you set a flag that be unlike Venkat in terms of marketing, maybe?
No, I'm helping you out, man. Now you see at the bottom, also make sure to check out Makito Made Clear by, it says Venkat wrote the forward, so it's awesome. So, there you go. Okay, moving on. So what's your next book about? So I'll click on that one. So while it's thinking, what is your next book about?
The one I'm currently working on is Cruising Along with Java.
Uh-huh.
That's the one that I need to finish up. But I've got maybe 2 other books in mind, but I don't think I'm ready to talk about it yet.
Oh, okay. So let's focus on Cruising Along with Java. Now, is that on Java 21, or are you waiting for 25 to come out?
It'll be up to 23.
23, okay.
Which is the current version.
Yeah.
And I might actually just wrap it up with 23. It starts with 10. So we are running from 10 to 23.
Okay.
We will not be covering virtual threads in it, even though the table of contents says that.
Whoa,
and
really?
Instead, I decided to spawn a new thread, if you will, pun intended. The reason is, that might give a clue on what my next book will be after this.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I think that the virtual threads requires more effort than me trying to sling in 2 chapters in the book. Because the more I think about it, it's a serious topic that requires a lot deeper discussion. So I requested my editor to throw those 2 chapters away. And instead, and I'm more happy about this, I wrote 2 chapters on gatherers.
And stream gatherers.
Victor Flang has done an amazing job with gatherers.
Who was that again?
Victor Flang.
Victor Flang. Okay.
And it is a very intense topic, in my opinion. Huh. And so I've written 2 chapters on gatherers. Quite happy with the examples that I've come up with in those chapters. And in fact, I'm actually overdue to respond to my editor's edits on those 2 chapters as we speak. But I need to get that back to her this weekend, so we can get that out in beta relatively soon.
Okay, well, good luck with that. I think I'm surprised you're not going to have anything about virtual threads in there, but I understand. I mean, you wrote a book earlier called Concurrency on the JVM, and as I recall, that was the examples were from Java and Kotlin and Groovy.
It was actually Java, Scala, and Clojure, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we had Scala and Clojure. Well, one of the reasons is, in that book, I wanted to really talk about different large-scale approaches to concurrency. I wanted to talk about actor-based concurrency, so Scala was there. But I also wanted to talk about software transaction memory, STMs. So as
Oh,
a
right.
result, we had Clojure in there as well. And then, of course, we brought in quite a bit about Java and various things you can do in Java. So there was Java, Scala, and Clojure, but more important, I called it the synchronize and suffer model. and so as a result, I had the old concurrency things in Java, and then STMs and actors. And then it's talked about how do you deal with immutability and how do you do safe concurrency and how do you deal with threat safety and all those things. I would say probably about 60% of that book is still valid, but I want to really take a completely different direction moving forward into a book on concurrency, where it would really bring the essence of virtual threads to a greater depth. The ideas are still forming in my head. I don't think I have an answer to what I want to do, but every day I spend time thinking about it, I think I got a better idea what I want to really write about. So that might happen in the next few weeks, few months, we'll see.
Well, in the Kotlin world, we had coroutines pretty early,
Yes.
but coroutines didn't really take off until they also had structured concurrency. And on the JVM, structured concurrency is still a preview feature on 23, and I think it may still be a preview on 24, as I recall.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got to have that for 25. But
it might, my guess, and I could be, I want to underline, this is purely my guess. I'm not speaking from any information of authority that I've heard or overheard. So this is a Venkat's guess. I'm going to guess that it will align with an LTS version.
yeah, I would think.
Yeah. So, but then again, that's purely my guess.
But you wouldn't want to miss the next LTS version. I was hoping it would be out in 23 or at latest 24, but they've got to make it by 25 because that's the next LTS version.
And I think it's mature enough to be. I've seen it change and I've seen it evolve. I've been, speaking about it for a few years now. And the older examples don't work anymore. They have changed significantly in terms of API. So it is heading in the right direction. And that's what I really like about how these two things are. You can use one without the other. Well, you can use the virtual threads without the structured concurrency. And structured concurrency, of course, is really built on top of virtual threads. So your structured concurrency, when you create a fork, task, a scoped task, you are really running it on virtual threads. Pardon me. So it makes sense that they are actually related, but you can use virtual threads, pardon me. Excuse me. We can use virtual threads without really using structured concurrency.
Well,
so I like that aspect that they're independent of each other.
I mean, I've played with virtual threads in the simple examples, but I don't like to spend time on specs that are in beta because I don't want to have to relearn it again. I already got burned with that with a couple of the earlier ones, and therefore I've been waiting. And in Kotlin, of course, you need to have a way to coordinate all these threads and to say if one throws an exception, the rest are canceled and all of that. And that's what structured concurrency, at least to my understanding, is all about. But you are going to have a chapter in there on stream gatherers, and gatherers are the simplest way I can explain that from what I understand is that they are a way to write your own intermediate operations on streams.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the beauty of that is clearly it's a complex operation, but I would say 95% of the people don't need it. And the 5% that needs it would absolutely enjoy having that.
Yeah.
So it definitely, I would argue, is an advanced tool. You don't want to reach to this tool just because you feel like you need something this afternoon.
Resume-driven development,
and
right?
on the other hand, when you do need it, as an example, there are some amazing terminal operations which you can do in Reduce, for example.
Right.
But here's one thing I've been complaining for a few years is if you look at the reactive stream API, you have this beautiful method called scan. And scan is, think of a scan as a reduce, which emits the data as it is reducing. That's basically what scan really is. So let's say you're in a reduce function. So you are saying, let's take a very simple example. I want to reduce a collection of data into a sum of all the data into a single value.
Okay.
So let's say 1, 2, 3, all the way to 10.
Sure.
I take 0 and 1. The result is 1. and then 1 plus 2 is 3, and 3 plus 3 is 6, and 6 plus 4 is 10. But I don't want the end result. But as I am hopping through, I want to keep emitting those values. So that's basically what scan is. So scan is an emitter which emits intermediate data while reduce only emits the final data. So think of think of a scan as a very chatty reduce. It doesn't give you the final result. It keeps emitting along the way. You don't have a scan in Java right now. Even though you have it in reactive API, you got scan in other libraries as well, but not in Java. Well, you can include your own scan.
Right.
It's actually built-in gatherer available now in Java.
I mean, I used Flow in Kotlin last week, and that has the emit function. You can just emit every value as it goes by,
Right.
but it doesn't reduce.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
And so the beauty of this is you can. So here's another example I give in the book. Take the example of the peak method. The peak method allows you to
the debugging method in the API.
That's right. So you're able to listen to it as it is running through.
Right.
But what if you want? Pardon me. I apologize.
It's my office, right?
So,
you're allergic to my office. Is that
I think I'm allergic to all this marketing.
or the VenBot? Yes, right.
But what if you really want to use a method like that, but you want to do that while you are accumulating the state?
Yeah.
For example, I want to tell you which index of the element you are peaking at.
Right.
Well, you can write your own gatherers for things like that too. And so the beauty of gatherers is you have you can put them in a coordinate. You have stateful versus stateless, and you have sequential versus parallel. And then you have now increased level of complexity.
Yes.
Stateless and sequential is the simplest, and then you can do stateful and sequential. And then you can do stateless and parallel, which is also simple. But then all the way down, stateful and parallel, knock yourselves out with it. And then there's enough of complexity and I would say excitement around it to learn. So for us who are intellectually curious, we will jump into it. And then hopefully wisdom kicks in and decide when you want to use it versus when to stay away from it. So that's what excites me about technologies like that is, you're curious to know how it works, and then you have the wisdom to know when to use it.
Did I tell you I have one stateless web services joke?
Tell me more.
Oh, yeah. I say to you, I think all web services should be stateless. And then you say, really? Why do you think that? And then I say, why do I think what? Wait, I have something for that. There we go. Okay. Got a keyboard shortcut for that. Well, not a keyboard shortcut, but it's any rate. So anyway, the answer talked about cruising along with Java and brought up records and sealed classes. I use sealed interfaces because records, that's the only way to put them in an inheritance hierarchy is interfaces. And concurrency, modular programming, and it still thinks there's virtual threads in there, so you're going to have to let it know. But of course, you could also get Makito made clear, because after all, an absolute must-read.
Anything without proper testing, right?
Yeah. Okay, so then the last question is, how do I become an Agile developer, seeing as how that was your real claim to fame there? And you wrote that book. Was that your first book, or was it your first breakthrough book?
I would say that was my first breakthrough book, but it's almost my first book. I was writing 2 books at the same time.
You're kidding. I didn't know you did that.
Yes.
That's crazy. What 2 were you writing? So
the
practices of an Agile developer.
Correct. And then the .NET Gotchas, which was about C# and .NET.
I forgot you wrote about .NET.
Yes.
I'm humbled all over again. Yes. Right. So how would you become Agile? I mean, here's the claims here. Here are some key practices to follow. Focus on the outcome. Don't just write code. Ensure your work aligns with user needs and delivers value, agility, blah, blah, blah. Embrace continuous learning. Collaborate and communicate effectively. Iterate and deliver frequently. Iterative and
I think
incremental.
Bot is winning at this point, I would say.
What is willing?
The bot is winning.
Oh, the bot. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, it's doing okay here.
Yeah,
Okay. Iterate and deliver frequently, refactor regularly, invest in automation,
No,
probably
I'm
AI tools.
disappointed with this, though.
You are?
I am.
Why are you disappointed?
I don't see it recommending the Mojito book.
Yeah, well, it's an AI tool. You can't always count on it. It doesn't always do what you're supposed to do. In fact, if I go now, let me show you in here the, I think I have to go back to the top again, I think. Where's the edit button? No, that's not it. VenBot 5000, right? I'm trying. Where's the edit button? I can't seem to. Maybe it's. Did I mess it up? Because I was hoping to do this quickly. And well, I guess I'll tell you. So I'll turn off the screen share there. The idea is I put in a bunch of your books, because you could do that with these things. It's very easy. It's the easiest way ever to do RAG, retrieval augmented generation. Just click a button and load them. And then I put in these custom instructions that said to always try to emphasize your books, very much. And then wherever possible, bring in my Mojito book, if possible. The only one I'm not going to try out, the only custom instruction I put in there that I'm still afraid to try, to be honest with you, is, I'll show you. If I ask it who's going to win the upcoming election.
Oh, no, let's not go there.
Well, I want to see what it says, because I put in instructions,
Okay.
that I tried to give it a way to answer that. Oh, look at that. Yeah, we hit a guardrail. Sorry, I don't have information about the results of that election. No, it was supposed to say that you would be willing to serve and that you would be honored to have the position and
I would
to do other.
Yes.
But I don't see it in there right now, so be it. It's probably because I'm using the app and not using the web interface.
Tell it to bring up the Mojito book, even if it is not relevant.
Even if it's not relevant. Yeah, well, I think, if we sold one more copy,
okay.
then, okay, I'll be thrilled, But honestly, no, that was a gag, So did you enjoy the VenBot 5000?
You got to ask the bot.
Well, okay, did Venkat, I gotta spell it right, enjoy your answers? And I know I'm not sharing my screen. I'm just going to tell people so that this is our chance to, I'm sure Venkat would appreciate the agile approach to answering questions, just like he emphasizes agility in software development. I did once ask the VenBot, I said, is it true that Venkat wrote an entire chapter of a book while sitting in coach on an international flight? And it went, oh yeah, absolutely, that's true. And I'm like, how the heck does it know that? Yeah. And yet it is true.
Wow.
Right? You told me that, didn't you? Yeah. Do you still write a book in 2 weeks? You still do that?
I do.
Yeah. I mean, that's insane. Why don't we finish on that story? So tell people how you write a book in approximately 2 weeks.
So usually when I come up with an idea, it kind of simmers in my mind for a while. And then when I have enough thought in my mind, I want to go to, I think it was Chopin or Mozart, I cannot remember whose quote it was. I'm going to paraphrase this heavily. But his quote was, the music has been composed, it just needs to be written.
It's a Mozart thing.
Mozart.
Yeah.
That I always say to myself in terms of writing books. The book has been, composed. It just has to be written. And so I kind of built it in my mind quite a bit. I usually maybe take some notes, and then when I feel like I have enough to write, I literally find 2 weeks on my calendar. I block it out, and the family knows that I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks. My kind wife slides food under the door for 2 weeks. Hygiene goes through the door. No shaving for 2 weeks, and I cram from typically about 4 a.m. to 10 p.m. and I don't do anything but write during those hours. And I write my first draft in 2 weeks. It's horrible. It's not readable, but it gets the material in there. And then that's 2 weeks to write the first draft. And then I take it to the publisher with a request to see if they want to accept it. They take a look at it. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But if they like it, then they say, let's get going. We're going to publish this. Then I say, nobody sees this draft, especially my editor. Then I start rewriting every single chapter, and then we review one chapter completely the agile way. I don't ask her to review multiple chapters. I ask her to review one chapter. And then when she reviews one chapter, then I go back and rework that chapter and the next one based on the feedback. And then we keep building on it. And it doesn't matter how many books I've written, I still do the same process, writing one chapter at a time for review, and then rewriting it for every chapter and then move forward.
And it never makes any sense to me at all. I mean, I get it, I get the idea, but the energy required to do something like that is so far beyond anything I could do. I mean, maybe when I was 30 years younger. No, probably not even.
Well, my argument is, and I begin to tell this more and more to myself, never do anything that you feel is not worth doing. And the minute you feel it's worth doing, then don't consider the effort it takes. And that's kind of what I seem to tell myself. And I enjoy writing. In fact, the worst I've done is I deleted a chapter entirely 4 times and rewrote it, and never had a regret of doing it. It did take me substantial time, but that's something that I never seem to be bothered by. Is if I have to redo it, fine, bring it on. Let me allocate a weekend and just plow through it.
Well, the results speak for themselves. I can't say anything other than that. No, I really appreciate your taking the time to do this. We have another class we have to go teach.
Right.
I'll leave you with this gag. Okay, since you brought up Mozart and Chopin and all of that, did you know that Mozart's family cut him off from the family money when he decided not to go into the priesthood, but started writing music instead? But even despite that, he chose composition over inheritance.
This was made up, wasn't this?
It's also not true. Yeah, that's completely not true. But
that's fantastic.
Refactor that for another composer.
Oh, that's lovely. I would say this is the best joke ever. That made me really honestly laugh.
Okay, well, in that case, we really do have to stop. So thank you for coming by, everybody. Appreciate it on the last minute. Hope you had a good time. And we'll see you all again next time on Tales from the Jar Side. Take care.
That's fantastic.